of the IMF, and that members of the IMF, when they face financial difficulties, specifically balance of payment difficulties, that is where you run to the fund for some support. You can go for financial support or technical support or both. In fact, there are so many categories of their program that you can subscribe to. What we are doing now as a country is to go for both financial and technical support from them, more like what we did in 2015. And so they give you some funding to support your balance of payment. In simple terms, you know, recently there were reports that our international reserves were declining and into about weeks of months of import cover. So that's a clear indication that you need the fund support. I mean, the IMF support. So you go there, they give you the funds, but the conversation goes beyond the fund. They will give you the money they will give you. As in this case, we are going for $3 billion, but the whole package goes beyond the $3 billion. What happens is that their people will come and then give the technical support, think with our managers of the economy, decide on which areas to invest. When the IMF is with you, the World Bank and other international organizations will also come on board. I've heard reports that the World Bank is also willing to support us with some millions of dollars. And then it also opens the doors for us to do business with the international community, which we call the investor confidence. Not only that, those who are already doing business with Ghana, they'll be more confident to continue doing business with us because of the presence of the IMF. In this case, because Ghana is with the IMF, they are so sure that we will be fiscally disciplined and not, you know, misappropriate or misapply the funds that we have. So in a nutshell, you are just going for some funding which will open doors for you to do business with the outside world and also bring your economy back on track. It is just like when you are sick and you go to see the doctor. The doctor will diagnose your sickness and then prescribe what drugs you must take. Is it stomach ache? Is it headache? Is it fever? Or what? And then the IMF, when they will leave, because Ghana has been there, this is the 17th time. So we go and then the program ends. So when the program ends, what the IMF will do for you is to give you stability, give you the BOP support, which will come with some macroeconomic stability. In this case, you'll be able to have your fiscal consolidation, reduce the budget deficit, bring inflation rates down, bring the exchange rate depreciation down, the depreciation rates down, and all that. So they give that stability. What you do with the stability is up to you, because the IMF is not going to give you any long-term solution. This program we are going for is a short-term solution. It is only going to give us a breathing space for us as a country, build on that to develop our own country. And so we should not think that this program is the end in itself. It is just a means to the end, a means to do something, a means to develop our own sector, the agri sector, the industrial sector, and then the service sector, so that we can create sustainable jobs. So IMF will not come and tell you, do this, do that to create jobs. They will just give you ability for you to develop your economy.
All right. Now, you said that if you're sick, then you go for, and you were perhaps just opposing it to a human being who is unwell. Does it mean that we were unwell because we took a number of actions? What are those actions, and how should we, going forward, take the right sort of actions for us to create that stability going forward, now that we are with the IMF?
Yes, the economy was sick at the time the managers make that decision. In fact, in almost all the 17 times that we've gone there, there was a need. The key word here is a need. There was a need to go to the fund. Other than that, things would have been worse than that. And so yes, I've always maintained my position that this decision was the only option we had. But like you said, what were the factors? What made us sick? Three things. I always have not, minced words. I always repeat that we had our own internal challenges even before COVID. So I can put them in a triangle: COVID, the war, and our own internal problems. So before COVID, our interest payment to revenue ratio was about 33%, one of the highest in the world. So we kept borrowing, and the growth rate of the borrowing outpaced the growth rate of domestic revenue. I did some calculation that between 2006 and 2022, our public debt has increased from 5 billion to now about almost more than 500 billion cedis. That is 9,900%. Meanwhile, the total revenue and grants increased from 3.6 billion to 100 billion now. That is just 2,800%. So compare 9,900% to 2,800%. So it means that over the 17-year period after HIPIC, what we have done as a country is to keep borrowing without taking care of our domestic revenue, our internal revenue. So that was a key challenge for us, even before COVID. And then there were also other internal challenges: the structure of the economy. We have said the foreign dominance of our economy. Our share in the natural resources is around 15-13%, at most 20%. We export oil, billions of dollars, and we get only $1 out of about $3.8 billion. So that is also a challenge. Then we have also talked about the lack of the retention law, or the lack of enforcement of the retention law. We have companies doing business in the country, and they repatriate everything. The structure of the economy, the import-dependent economy, where we have to, industrialize. We have to make sure that we own the resources, at least 50%, and all that. These were all challenges. We had challenges with our transportation. Public transport system is not working well.
Okay.
And then the COVID struck. And I don't think that we should underestimate the impact of COVID. This was a global challenge. It brought both health crisis and economic crisis, and within the economic crisis, both demand side and supply side shocks. Nobody should underestimate the impact of COVID. And then, as the world was recovering from COVID, the impact of COVID, and then we experienced the effect of the war, Russia-Ukraine war, which brought about a rise in food prices and energy prices. And you know that anytime energy price rise, it will affect transportation. And you go to the market, the tomato seller will tell you that I paid a higher price for my tomato, so I'm also increasing my tomato price. And so it affects everything that we consume in the country. One of my professors, I'm not sure he wants me to mention his name, he did his calculation last year, and he attributed 28% of the cedi depreciation to the war. Okay. So is it 100%? No. But is it 0%? No. So you can't, I don't like this, politicization of the whole thing, that one party will say everything is because of the war and the Russia, Ukraine, and the COVID. Another party will say, no, there was no impact. It's your own mismanagement. The answer is that three challenges: our internal challenges, the impact of COVID, and the impact of the war.
Okay, let me ask you. Three, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and because of the time, so let me just let you go. But before then, the question is, prior to COVID, or since the period, you mentioned the first time we went for our Eurobond was back in 2000, started the roadshow 2006, then 2007 we had the first Eurobond, all right?
Yeah.
And subsequently 750, then we've been going. Now, over the last, before 2020, we'd been doing 3 billion. I mean, what are the trade-offs? Should we continue on that path? Because it looks like we keep hearing from you, the economists and the business community and those who are doing the analysis, that we need to create the space. What are the trade-offs? We want to go to the capital markets, we take 3 billion. How should we be using that to create the needed returns? And that will have a reflection on the economy. Just quickly that, maybe 2 minutes. And
okay. So I think your question is being drawn from the development of the public debt. Certainly. Let me say the three main factors that drive the public debt. Number one is the budget deficit. We did our calculation, and that amounted to 49%. So 49% of the development in the public debt is coming from the budget deficit, which is the difference between revenue and expenditure. The second determinant, which is 28%, is coming from the cedi depreciation. So last year, the cedi depreciation alone added about 90 billion Ghana cedis to the debt. This is not physical cash. The third determinant is the off-budget borrowing, things that the minister will not plan in the budget, but they will end up borrowing for it, like the financial sector cleanup, energy sector, debt service, and then some of the state-owned enterprises to government will have to give them guarantee for their borrowing. And so that's about 23%. So how do we tackle these three? First of all, we need that stability, which is the exchange rate. So if you're able to tame the cedi depreciation, then you are controlling about 28% of the development of the public debt. And then the off-budget borrowing, if the state-owned enterprises and other, unplanned expenditure are also controlled, then you are controlling 23% of the development in the public debt. Then we come to the larger cake, which is the budget deficit, 49%. So how do we close the gap? We close the gap by either increasing revenue or reducing expenditure. And so that's why it's always important to emphasize on the important expenditure, the essential ones. And then also we should be able to raise our own revenue. We have mentioned a whole number of sources of raising revenue internally. And so because you always have to borrow the difference. So if the gap is small, then your borrowing will be small. If the gap is wide, you borrow. But when we go to the capital market, the consequence of going to the capital market is different, because now it's non-concessional, it is a commercial rate. So we have to make sure that we prudently use the borrowed funds so that it can generate its own revenue to service the debt. Because we have to go beyond the debt to GDP ratio to also the debt service revenue ratio. So if you have borrowed to invest in the income generating venture, then your debt service to revenue ratio should not be that much. It should give you income to service your debt. That is the variable that we should be looking at going forward. And I think that we have messed up as a country, and we have to all come together and develop it and be fiscally disciplined.
All right. I think that all of us will carry along with that communication. And I thank you for that. Which one is easier? Increasing revenue or reducing expenditure? Which one is easier? Or the low-hanging fruit, which one is easier when you're taking that boardroom decision?
Well, okay, let me put it this way. I am a student of revenue generation, because I think that if you raise revenue, when you have money, you can do a whole lot of things. Already, the money is not enough for government. The roads must be constructed, hospitals must be built, there must be the light, there must be water in the tap. So I think that we should be able to raise our revenue. And I will go for revenue generation. All angles, not only taxes. There are so many ways of raising revenue. People have mentioned property rates. We have talked about tax exemptions. We have talked about, the natural resource, which we are okay to rake in about $5 billion every year if we behave like Botswana and Nigeria. So these are the key areas that we have to look at to raise revenue. Because if you are asking government to cut expenditure, what you are telling government is to stop constructing road, stop building hospitals, stop building bridges. The preaching must be the prudent use, the efficient use of the funds, and not necessarily cut expenditure. If we should be prudent, they should cut waste. That one I agree. But the emphasis to me should be on revenue generation, so that the government can finance its own developmental projects as we go forward. Thank you.